have a statement I'm going to read and then we'll answer a few questions. Good morning. My name is Brian Stauth. I'm the Fire Chief for the City of Medicine Hat and Incident Commander here in the Emergency Operations Center. Alberta Environment advises that precipitation in some areas west of us reached 170 millimeters. However, precipitation was less than expected overall. Also, a significant amount of that precipitation fell as snow, which will have less impact on river flow rates. As of 8 p.m. Tuesday, June 17th, South Saskatchewan river flow level was 471 cubic meters per second. Typical flow during this time of the year is about 400 cubic meters per second. During the 2013 Medicine Hat flood event, the South Saskatchewan River peaked at 5,460 cubic meters per second. Alberta Environment will not be able to provide an updated river flow model until early afternoon. Unless information changes, our current planning for flood mitigation measures remains in place. We want to err on the side of caution and take any steps required to protect life, safety, and property. Deployment and construction of temporary mitigation measures continued through the night and is ongoing today, including installation of berms in the areas that could be affected. There's activity in Harlow and Riverside, Lions Park, Strathcona Island Park, and the River Flats area. Potential evacuation areas remain unchanged, and we continue to advise residents in these areas to make necessary precautions should they be required to evacuate on short notice. The arena and athletic park are closed for public access as of 10 a.m. this morning. As part of the burning operations, sewer services to those facilities had to be interrupted, requiring public restrictions to these sites. Additionally, a number of trails are closed. River levels are rising and flows are increasing, albeit slowly at this point. The public is asked to stay away from the river and creeks for their own safety. We'll provide our next update once new information is provided by Alberta Environment or the situation changes. So I'd be happy to field a few questions.
Last year we saw the bridges over the creeks, or at least one of them, close. Are we expecting that in the next few hours?
So we have information from Alberta Environment that tells us precipitation in the Cypress Hills area is somewhat less than expected. We don't anticipate that our tributaries are going to be a concern.
For construction on the Maple Avenue Bridge, obviously there's been a lot done both to the one side where it's been stripped down. Is there any concern that that might be affected with potential floodwaters coming through as far as stability of the structure?
We don't have any concerns regarding the Maple Avenue Bridge at this point.
So that update from Alberta Environment, that's the 4 o'clock update that we've been told about?
So we expect to see an update from Alberta Environment concerning river flow modeling around noon. And once we've done that and had our operational briefing here, we're going to be hosting another media scrum, and that will be relayed to you by our public information officer.
Have you been in touch with any of your counterparts in Lethbridge as to how they're faring at this point in time?
So we have had a conference call that had representatives from the City of Lethbridge involved, and the information that we have now is they haven't seen a peak flow there yet. They are continuing to do what we are doing here in Medicine Hat, and that's prepare with caution.
I was told it would take 60 hours to implement the work plan for mitigation around Lions Park. Where are we at with that? Is that on schedule? Is it working?
So our installation of temporary berms and mitigation measures is on schedule. It began yesterday and it continues as we speak. So we anticipate that we'll be on schedule to complete those before we see a peak in Medicine Hat.
Obviously there's a concern for people going down by the tributaries and the South Saskatchewan River. What's your message to them?
So the message is simply this, that we are receiving precipitation. We will see river levels rise and flow rates increase over time. We're just asking the public to stay away from the river and tributaries for their own safety.
So we know that there's 3 locations that the temporary mitigation berms and HESCO bags were set up. Are those all being used, every last thing that we have for flood mitigation?
So all of our mitigation equipment and resources that we have had on stack, or pardon me, on supply, are currently being deployed. And we'll see as we get through this next update on the river model whether we need to completely deploy or partially deploy that equipment.
For the residents that are in the evacuation area, can you explain where that is?
So the evacuation area is posted on the city's website. There's multiple evacuation areas. The best thing is to access our website. The areas are highlighted and people can clearly see whether they live inside of those identified areas or not.
And how should they best be prepared?
All we're asking people to do at this point in time is prepare themselves in case they need to leave on short notice. So that's gather any important documents they might want to take with them. If they so choose to move anything important from a lower level to an upper level in their home, they should do that.
Are there plans to close River Road at any time within the next few hours?
So we don't have plans to close River Road in the next few hours, but that again will be monitored hour by hour as we see our flow rates increase here in the South Saskatchewan River.
For people with the isolation valves, what are they supposed to do with those at this point?
So the people with sanitary sewer isolation valves should not be closing them until they're instructed to do so by city staff. So if in the event we were to take a sewer lift station offline, we would tell people in those areas to close their sanitary sewer isolation valves. If we tell people to evacuate an area, we'll also be instructing them to close those. So for now, those valves should remain open until they hear different from city operations.
And what potential damage could that do if they close them early?
Well, if they close them early, they won't have any sewage outflow from their home, so naturally they want to keep them open.
So we heard the worst case scenario yesterday. What's the best case scenario?
We don't know what the best case scenario is yet, and so when we get river modeling from Alberta Environment at noon, we're going to have a much better idea.
And what would you, obviously you would like to see no flooding, but what do you see as the best possible outcome to this flood event?
So if we're fortunate, and Alberta Environment tells us that river modeling suggests that we'll see increased flows but no significant flooding, that would be the best outcome we could hope for.
What message do you have for the guys in the ballpark in the arena who won't do this, millions of dollars in input, and is there a chance that there could be limited damage there?
So the message for them is we are working to install temporary mitigation measures to protect those properties, and we have confidence that those are going to work.
And can you compare what's going on now this year to what was going on at a similar time last year?
So the biggest change would be the significant amount of preparation and planning that's gone into the temporary mitigation measures. That would be the biggest single change from last year. We learned a lot from the 2013 flood event the city did corporately, and so now there's been a lot of planning that's gone into place, and those plans are being implemented.
Is it safe to say that for this moment in time, until you receive your next update, that there's some cautious optimism?
So I would say, due to the fact that we've seen less precipitation in the west, I'm more optimistic than I was yesterday.
Do you see the evacuation or potential evacuation area expanding at all into other parts of the city?
No, we've identified the potential evacuation areas. We do not have plans to expand that yet, but that doesn't mean we couldn't if situations worsen. But currently we're not planning to expand those areas.
What message do you want to send out to residents to reduce panic?
Just to let them know that city crews are working feverishly on this. There's been a lot of planning put into place. These plans are being implemented. Our crews are working tirelessly to protect our people and their property, and they just need to know that that's happening all about them.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Do you have copies of the release first?